root of how do people see us, how do they see what we're selling, how do we get into their head and understand how people perceive value. And so I'm going to throw out some stuff. I've been studying a lot of deep stuff about how the mind works, and it's really interesting because our minds are actually very simple, but we're all screwed up by virtue of being human beings. And our minds are formed based on what's around us. We learn by, you see children, what do they learn from? Parents, what's around them. We learn from school, we learn, all of our standards and norms come from the general world around us. And our minds are so locked into this that when something new comes like out of the box, like, their drinking water is poison, basically. Put rat poison in it called fluoride, which is one of the most deadly things you could do. Yet people just can't grasp the concept that, why would the water be poison? Probably not intentional, but still, it's a tricky thing because it's a norm that people can't even imagine until you bring it up to them. And then it's like, it takes a lot of, adjustment to really kind of break through all this stuff. And more marketing guys. So anyway, when we get into that, how our minds work, what's really interesting is we actually don't see the world. We don't actually see things in the way that we think about it. We're triggered by things because our mind is a huge filtering system. If you think about all the input that we receive walking down the street or even sitting in this room, there's all kind of noise, and it's fairly quiet here, but there's hums and whizzes and other people here, and our mind is basically filtering out almost everything. And we are all wired in a certain way that certain things just trigger us, grab our attention. And those triggers are actually conditioned by how we have grown up and how we're all different. Every person has a different sort of trigger. And a lot of the triggers are just very familiar. And the triggers can bring in a whole complex of things. It's not just one simple thing, but it could be a whole complex of things. So for some people, just getting up to they say public speaking is the scariest thing for people to do other than facing death. It's like, one of the top 3, I think. And that could be because they were ashamed in school or kids laughed at them. There's all these other reasons that a whole complex of things can come in. And when we're selling something or marketing something to people, if we don't really understand the context in which they're viewing the situation, and again, it seems kind of like a lot of detail, but if you think of a context, like say a husband walks home, the wife's been home all day with 2 sick children, and the cable guy's 4 hours late, and he comes home and she's kind of cranky and tired, and he just walks into this, "Hey, why are you cranky today?" Pretty awful, right? Not taking account of context at all. And so that's the same thing when we're presenting someone with a message, a marketing message, any kind of message, is the context in which they're receiving that message. And we see all the time that, a lot of advertising agencies and big businesses do terrible jobs with that because they're not thinking of the context in which somebody is receiving that message. The more we understand the context, the more we can create a message that will connect with that person. If that husband brings home dinner or brings home some roses because he knows that she's got 2 sick children and he knows she's dealing with a cable or the internet companies, which are always a nightmare, then he's going to score a lot of points, and that's going to help. That's one of those little things that will just build a stronger relationship. And again, it's all about context. And this is the hard thing, but this is what separates people that really succeed from those who are just copying everybody around them. And as we see most businesses, what do they want to do? They want to copy what they're seeing the ones on TV doing. But it's all about how do we really reach that unique person that we have a certain product that will really benefit. I pick on Joe because I know his product pretty well. I know a lot about water treatment as well, but he has an audience, a certain type of audience that this is going to appeal to right off the bat. And as more and more people start to become aware of this, they're going to be open to it. The context is going to fit. But there's also a defensiveness. And this is why when you see something like on the Facebook, when people talk about vaccinations for their children, you see people screaming bloody murder at each other. Well, why is this? Well, it's not just because people are sold on vaccines. What you have is parents who have vaccinated their children, doing the best they thought it was, whether you think it's good or bad, that they were doing the best they thought they could at the time. But if you go and say, by the way, these vaccines are harming children, you're basically telling that parent, by implication, that you were thoughtless and didn't, you could have damaged your children. And so instead of realizing that we all do the best we can, we all have good and bad information in life, the people that stir up these debates actually use that to play off people instead of building understanding and saying, well, let's really look at these. Yeah, we did it, but at the time that was the best knowledge available. Maybe we've learned some different things now. Because it's the implication of things that matter. It's not the direct thing. Think of that couple again. The husband walks in with lipstick on his collar at 10:30 at night. Well, the wife's not upset that the laundry bill just went up, right? There's a lot more going on. The implications that come through something are, what's our relationship like? Is he cheating on me? What's going on? Maybe he saved a woman from falling off the subway platform and she just brushed up against his collar or whatever, just out of gratitude. But that's a tough sell, right, to the wife. But all these things come into play in a more complex situation. And it seems like a lot of stuff to take into account, but the more that we can really think through that and understand how that customer is going to see what we're doing and what the implication of the message that we give each, and really think through how is this going to benefit them, how are all the ways, what are the objections they're going to have to this, what might trigger a reaction against this. And there's so many elements to this that help us to really craft the right kind of message. Because especially with the internet, with video, all these things that we're really trying to carry on a two-way conversation with somebody. And in a two-way conversation, I can read your body language. You're going to look bored, confused, angry. I can immediately adjust to that. But if I have a video or some sort of really one-way media or a web copy, and I get you bored or I get you angry, you're just going to click away, and I'm never going to know it. So I have to understand my customer well enough that I can carry on a two-way conversation with them without upsetting them, boring them, angering them, whatever else I could do. I have to the more I can understand them, craft that message in a way that will minimize those triggers that will turn somebody off, the more effective that message is going to be. And that's when something like crafting a video message is so important, or crafting web copy. That's why we make the big bucks in marketing, right? Because it's not easy to really remove all those stumbling blocks. Because you think about it, and I tell this story a lot, so it's boring, and I apologize if you've heard it, but one of my go-to stories is think of a blind date. Who's been on a blind date before? Anybody in their life? Now, old people
never
like,
dated a blind person.
Old timers like me before Facebook, we couldn't look them up and see what they look like. So imagine going back in ancient history, right? And your friend, so you can at least imagine what a blind date's like. Like you're hoping, like, well, this could be really great. It could be really bad, right? Oh, she could be wonderful. Oh, maybe she can't get a date. And that's why my friend wants me to. You say, have all these conflicting things. So when your visitor or your person comes to your website, looks at your brochure, whatever, they want you to be the answer. I mean, you really don't want to just date and date and date. You want to find the one. You want that person. So you're coming with that hopefulness. But you're also, in the back of your mind, got all these questions like, oh my gosh, what if he doesn't have a job? What if he lives with his mother? All these things, right? It may not be top of mind, but they're kind of swimming around in there with all this kind of partially thought out. Easy to imagine, right? So let's say Molly and I are on a blind date, for instance. And so we're just chatting away. And I come out and say, oh, and by the way, I have a job and I don't live with my mother. What's your reaction going to be?
Good to know.
A little weird though, right?
But you just randomly said that, yeah.
You're probably like, okay, that's a bit weird.
You have other issues.
Yeah, maybe I can get away with it if I'm a Huntsville engineer and you just figure, well.
Yeah, and then now it's explained it.
But if I come out and tell a story, we're chit-chatting and say, oh, I was running to work this morning and I was late, I had this big meeting and going down the parkway, and you know how the traffic is on the South Parkway, it's just like a nightmare. And I saw this cute little puppy and he's getting right up on the road and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this puppy's gonna get hit, oh my gosh, what do? So I'm able to pull off the road real quick and I get to my knees and get the puppy to come up to me and I pet him a couple times, pick him up, and I run to the closest house. They don't know where he belongs. I go to the next house and they say, I think that's the one over there. And so I go there and the lady comes to the door and she's so happy the puppy got out of the fence and the little girl was going to be so upset. So I said, well, you're more than welcome. I got to run and get in my car. So I jump in the car. I'm driving in that traffic. I'm thinking, Mom loves these little wiener puppies. That's her favorite type of dog. I got to call Mom and tell her about this puppy. So I'm about to call Mom. Her goes, wait, Mom's an hour behind me. She's not even up yet. I'll call her tonight. It's been a couple of weeks. I'll give her a call. I need to talk. Right, so I tell that story, and what have I done? I've answered those questions. It might not even be top of mind. Without bringing them up, all of a sudden you're going to feel a level of comfort and security. Okay, that little half-answered question has just disappeared in the level of, and I'm kind of a nice guy because I care about puppies and so on. So your message, when you tell your story, tell your message, the more you can answer the objections that are going to come up without bringing them up and maybe calling attention to them, but just bring them up in the context of your presentation, the more they're going to dissolve that, and that customer is going to just feel more connected, feel more at ease, and feel less defensive. Going to remove those barriers. So these are the things about context and creating your message. And most of us who are in small business, how do we stand out? If we have a really unique product, that's one thing. But there's, most people tend to commoditize, and they like to lump us into categories. Alabama fan, Auburn fan, right? Or Yankee Southern or whatever. These characters, these different things. Our mind automatically categorizes because our mind has to make very quick decisions for survival, to protect us and whatever. And most of these things we don't even think about. They just happen so naturally that we're not even aware of them. So the worst thing we can do is get put in the wrong category, like, oh, weird guy telling me he lives with his mother, he has a job. All of a sudden I'm categorized as a category. I got to try to work my way back into a good category, right? So the first thing we don't want to do is get knocked into a bad category, and us versus them. So yeah, if I'm speaking to the Auburn Alumni Association, I don't want to wear a roll tide shirt. That's immediately going to get me characterized and categorized as the other side. So in our marketing copy, the more we can make those connections, become an us versus a them, find ways to be part of the gang, like, hey, I'm from this area, oh great, I went to the same high school, or whatever, even in little ways that can be. But a lot of times it can just be the way we talk about ourselves and our background can really build that connection. So, how's my time doing?
You're at your time.
Okay. So anyway, I hope that made sense and was helpful. Any questions or any?
Thank you.